I stood in my office, staring at the email that just shattered my career milestone. After 3 years of flawless work as senior financial analyst, my approved trip to the Austin conference was canceled. The CEO's son, Blake Hartwell, newly appointed as VP of Operations, stood in my doorway with a smirk. "Budget cuts," he said casually, though I knew the company just posted record profits. That same afternoon I saw his Instagram story. A private yacht party with champagne towers and celebrity DJs. My blood ran cold. Something was very, very wrong here. I sat at my kitchen table that evening, laptop open, coffee growing cold beside me. The anger from this afternoon had crystallized into something sharper, more focused. Blake Hartwell had canceled my conference trip with 2 words: budget cuts. But companies posting their best quarterly earnings in 5 years do not cut budgets for employee development. My job as senior financial analyst gave me access to company expense reports. Not everything, but enough. I opened the internal database and started digging. What I found made my stomach turn. Over the past 18 months, $75,000 had been charged to something called miscellaneous operational expenses. The line item was vague enough to avoid scrutiny, but specific enough to pass initial approval. I cross-referenced the dates with Blake's social media accounts. Every single expenditure matched one of his extravagant posts. The yacht party I had seen today, $32,000, charged to a corporate vendor account listed as client entertainment. Except there were no clients. Just Blake and his friends drinking champagne that cost more than my monthly rent. A private jet to Las Vegas 6 weeks ago? $41,000, filed under executive travel for business development. His Instagram showed him at a poker table surrounded by people in designer clothes. No business meetings, no development. Consultant fees totaling $28,000 that were actually payments to casinos. I found the receipts buried in the digital files. Blake had gotten sloppy, probably because no one had ever questioned him before. I took screenshots of everything. Every receipt, every social media post, every expense report. I created a private folder on my personal laptop and backed everything up to a secure cloud storage. My hands shook as I worked. This was dangerous territory. Blake was the CEO's son. Ronald Hartwell had built this company from nothing 30 years ago, and Blake was his golden child, his heir apparent. But this was theft, plain and simple. Monday morning arrived too quickly. I had barely slept, my mind racing through scenarios. I needed to report this, but I needed to do it carefully. I scheduled a meeting with Patricia Wells, the HR director. She had always seemed fair, professional. Surely she would take this seriously. Her office was on the 8th floor, decorated with motivational posters about integrity and teamwork. The irony was not lost on me. Patricia greeted me warmly at first. I sat down, my folder of evidence in my lap, and began to explain what I had discovered. Her expression shifted as I talked, from friendly to concerned to something else. Something that made my confidence waver. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Lena, I appreciate you bringing this to my attention, but I need to be honest with you. Blake came to see me last week." My heart sank. He mentioned that you had been resistant to his new leadership style, that you had been spreading rumors about his management decisions. He was concerned about your attitude. I felt the room tilt. That's not true. I have never said anything about him until I discovered this fraud. Patricia's expression was sympathetic but firm. I am not accusing you of anything. I am just letting you know that there's already been conversation about your behavior. You need to be very careful here, Lena. Accusing an executive of fraud is serious. If you are wrong, or if this is misinterpreted, it could end your career. The message was clear. Back off. I left her office feeling sick. Blake had gotten ahead of me. He had already painted me as difficult, as someone with an axe to grind. Anything I said now would look like retaliation or paranoia. That afternoon, an email appeared in my inbox. The subject line made my blood pressure spike. Performance Improvement Plan. I opened it with shaking hands. Blake had documented a list of performance issues. Missed deadlines on projects I had completed early, errors in reports I had never made, complaints from colleagues I had never had conflicts with. Every single item was fabricated, but it was all there in official company format, time-stamped and filed. I had 30 days to improve, or face termination. I sat staring at my screen, feeling the walls close in. Blake was not just stealing from the company. He was systematically destroying anyone who might notice. My colleague Jordan Matthews appeared at my cubicle entrance late that afternoon. Jordan was a financial coordinator, someone I had worked with on several projects. He looked nervous, glancing around before leaning in close. "Can we talk?" "Not here." We met at a coffee shop 3 blocks from the office. Jordan ordered a black coffee and sat across from me, his fingers drumming anxiously on the table. "I heard Blake put you on a PIP," he said quietly. Word traveled fast. 2 other people questioned his spending in the last year, Jordan continued. Angela Martinez and David Sullivan. Both of them were put on performance plans. Both of them were gone within 2 months. I felt cold despite the warmth of the coffee shop. What happened to them? They quit rather than fight it. Blake made their lives miserable. Constant criticism, impossible deadlines, public humiliation in meetings. Angela told me she could not take it anymore. She just walked away. And David? Same thing. He tried to push back, said he would file a complaint. A week later, he was accused of violating company policy, something about misusing company resources. It was bogus, but by then he was so exhausted from fighting that he just resigned. I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup, needing the warmth. So Blake gets away with it because people give up. His father protects him, Jordan said. Ronald Hartwell will never let anything happen to Blake. You are fighting the CEO's son. That's not a fight you can win. But I was not ready to give up. Not yet. Over the next 2 weeks, I continued working while documenting everything Blake did. Every interaction, every email, every impossible demand. I kept copies of my actual work, proof that I was meeting all my real deadlines and producing quality analysis. And I kept digging into his financial fraud, finding more and more evidence of theft. Blake was stealing from the company his father built, and nobody was stopping him because challenging him meant career suicide. I went home every night exhausted and anxious. My apartment felt too quiet, too empty. I had moved to this city 3 years ago for this job, left behind friends and family for the opportunity. Now I was watching it all crumble because I had noticed something I was not supposed to see. The performance improvement plan hung over me like a sword. Every morning I woke up wondering if today would be the day Blake found an excuse to fire me. Every email made my heart race, expecting another fabricated complaint. But I kept working, kept documenting, kept hoping that somehow truth would matter. I had no idea how much worse things were about to get. The call came on a Tuesday morning, 2 weeks into my performance improvement plan. Patricia Wells wanted to see me immediately. Not scheduled, not planned. Immediately. I grabbed my notebook and headed to her office, my stomach in knots. This time, Patricia was not alone. Marcus Green, the company's legal counsel, sat in one of her office chairs. His presence made the small room feel cramped and official. His expression was unreadable, but his posture was rigid. "Lena, please sit down," Patricia said. Her warm tone from our previous meeting was gone. I sat, gripping my notebook. Marcus opened a folder and slid a document across the desk. "Do you recognize this?" It was an expense report. My employee identification number was at the top, my digital signature at the bottom. The claim was for $12,000 in consulting services for a company I had never heard of. "I have never seen this before," I said immediately. Marcus's expression did not change. "This report was submitted under your credentials 4 days ago. It requests reimbursement for consulting services that, according to our investigation, never occurred. The vendor does not exist." My heart hammered. I did not submit this. I have never submitted a fraudulent expense report. Someone is framing me. "The digital trail leads to your workstation," Marcus said. "Your login credentials, your employee number, your signature. Then someone accessed my computer when I was not there," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Blake Hartwell has access to the finance floor. He could have used my workstation during one of my meetings." Patricia and Marcus exchanged a glance. "Lena," Patricia said carefully, Making accusations against executives is not going to help your situation. It is not an accusation. It is the truth. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. Blake has been embezzling company funds for 18 months. I have documentation. He is framing me because I discovered what he is doing. Marcus closed the folder. We have placed you on immediate suspension without pay, effective now, while we conduct a full investigation into this matter. You need to surrender your access badge and leave the building. Security will escort you. The room spun. You are suspending me? I am the one being framed. The evidence is clear, Marcus said. Until we can verify your claims and complete our investigation, you cannot remain on the premises. I wanted to argue, to fight, to make them see reason, but I could tell from their expressions that nothing I said would matter. The decision had already been made. 20 minutes later, I walked through the lobby carrying a cardboard box with my few personal items. A security guard walked 2 steps behind me. Colleagues stared as I passed. Some looked sympathetic. Most looked away. The humiliation burned hotter than the fear. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 10 minutes, trying to catch my breath. Suspended without pay. Under investigation for fraud I did not commit. My career was being destroyed, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. That evening, Jordan called me. I heard what happened, he said. I am so sorry, Lena. They are framing me, I said, my voice hollow. Blake accessed my computer and created a fake expense report. I believe you, Jordan said, and I think I can help. Remember Catherine Price? The name was vaguely familiar. She worked in accounting? She left 6 months ago. Same situation as you. Blake accused her of submitting fraudulent expense reports. She was suspended, threatened with criminal charges. Jordan gave me her phone number. I called Catherine the next day. We met at a small diner on the edge of town, far from anywhere our former colleagues might see us. Catherine was in her early 40s, with tired eyes and a wary expression. She ordered coffee and got straight to the point. Blake Hartwell destroyed my career, she said. I worked at that company for 12 years. 12 years of excellent performance reviews, promotions, respect. Then I noticed some irregularities in expense reports. I asked questions. 2 weeks later, I was accused of fraud. What happened? I asked. He planted evidence, just like he did to you. A fake expense report with my credentials. I hired a lawyer, tried to fight it. But Blake's father made it clear I could accept a settlement and leave quietly, or they would pursue criminal charges. My hands tightened around my coffee cup. You took the settlement. I had 2 kids in college and a mortgage. I could not risk going to jail for something I did not do. I signed an NDA, took $50,000, and walked away. Her voice was bitter. $50,000 to stay quiet about fraud and let my reputation be ruined. How many others? I asked. That I know of? 3, including me. Angela Martinez and David Sullivan. Angela took a settlement. David fought longer, but eventually he gave up too. Blake always wins because his father protects him. Ronald Hartwell will never let his son face consequences. We talked for 2 hours. Catherine told me everything. Blake's patterns, his tactics, how he identified threats and neutralized them. How the company's legal team worked to protect the Hartwell family above all else. As we prepared to leave, Catherine said something that stuck with me. The only reason I lost is because I did not have enough evidence. I had suspicions and questions, but Blake had documentation and his father's backing. If I could go back, I would have kept better records. Detailed, undeniable records. That is the only thing that might have saved me. I drove home thinking about her words. Records, documentation, evidence. I had been collecting information on Blake's fraud, but I had not organized it properly. I had screenshots and files scattered across folders, important but not strategic. That night, I went to an office supply store and bought a 3-ring binder. A red one, because red demands attention. Then I went home and got to work. I spent 3 days organizing everything I had discovered. Every fraudulent expense report Blake had submitted, printed and tabbed with dates and amounts. Screenshots of his social media posts, each one time-stamped to match corporate expenditures. Bank transfer records I had accessed through my financial analyst credentials before being locked out, showing money flowing from company accounts to Blake's personal accounts. I included the fake expense report used to frame me, along with digital forensic evidence I had gathered showing it originated from Blake's IP address, not mine. I had pulled the metadata before my access was terminated, and it clearly showed the report was created from a workstation on the executive floor. I contacted Angela Martinez and David Sullivan through LinkedIn. Both were hesitant to talk at first, but when I explained I was fighting back, they agreed to provide written statements about what Blake had done to them. I documented Blake's threats and intimidation tactics, every email where he had criticized my work unfairly, every impossible deadline, every fabricated complaint. And I found something even more damaging, a memo. 6 months ago, the former CFO, Walter Hughes, had raised concerns about Blake's spending directly to CEO Ronald Hartwell. I found the email chain buried in archived files I had accessed during a routine audit before my suspension. Walter had documented $35,000 in questionable expenses and asked for clarification on their business purpose. Ronald's response was brief. Blake is learning the business. Some expenses are necessary for relationship building. Do not bring this up again. 2 months later, Walter Hughes resigned. The official story was early retirement, but the timing told a different story. I included copies of that entire email chain in the binder. The most damaging piece was a signed approval form. Blake's largest single fraudulent expense, a $41,000 private jet trip, had required executive approval above his authority level. The signature on the approval form was Ronald Hartwell's. The CEO had personally authorized his son's fraud. I organized the binder with tabs, highlighted key sections, and added a comprehensive index. By the time I finished, it was devastating, undeniable. 300 pages of documented theft and corruption. I made 3 copies. One went into a safe deposit box at my bank. One went to Amanda Foster, an attorney I hired with the last of my savings. The third stayed with me. I was running out of money. My rent was due in a week, and I had no income. I had sent out 50 job applications, but got no responses. I suspected Blake had been blackballing me through his industry connections. Several recruiters who had initially seemed interested suddenly stopped returning my calls. I was broke, suspended, facing potential criminal charges, and fighting a system designed to protect the powerful. But I had the red binder, and I was not giving up. 3 weeks into my suspension, living on credit cards and growing desperation, my phone buzzed with an email notification at 11:30 at night. The sender was Blake Hartwell. Personal email address, not corporate. Subject line, please help urgent. I stared at the screen, certain I was misreading it. Blake was currently framing me for fraud, destroying my career, and threatening me with prison. Why would he email me asking for help? I opened the message. Need $9,000 now. Urgent personal matter. Can you help? Will pay back double. I read it 3 times, each time more confused than the last. $9,000? From me? The woman he was actively trying to destroy? I did not respond. The next morning, another email arrived. Lena, please. It is life or death. I will make the investigation go away. Just this one favor. Life or death. What could possibly make Blake this desperate? I sat at my tiny kitchen table staring at the emails. Something was very wrong here. Blake would never ask me for help unless he had absolutely no other options, and the amount was oddly specific. $9,000, not $10,000. 9. I could not afford to hire a private investigator, but I knew someone who owed me a favor. Danny Chen had worked in corporate security before going freelance. We had collaborated on a fraud prevention project 2 years ago. I called him and explained the situation. I can dig around, Danny said, but I am not cheap. I will pay you when I can, I promised. Right now, I just need information. Danny called me back 6 hours later. Your boy Blake is in serious trouble, he said. He owes money to some very dangerous people. Underground poker ring operating out of Newark. High-stakes games with players who do not forgive debts. My stomach dropped. How much does he owe? $80,000. Payment was due 3 days ago. They have been adding interest. He needs to come up with the money fast, or things get ugly. How ugly? The kind of ugly that ends with broken bones. Or worse. After I hung up, I sat processing this information. Blake had been embezzling company money to fund a gambling addiction. He had been paying his debts with stolen funds. But something had changed recently. Then I remembered the new financial controls. 6 months ago, I had been assigned to implement enhanced security protocols for company accounts. The project had been my idea, designed to prevent exactly the kind of fraud Blake was committing. The new system required multiple approvals for large transfers and flagged unusual patterns. I had designed the controls, I had implemented them, I had set the authorization levels and created the override codes. Only I had the master access that would allow someone to bypass the new security and move large sums without triggering alerts or requiring board approval. That was why Blake needed me. He could not access the money anymore because I had locked him out with my own security system. The irony would have been funny if the situation were not so serious. A third email arrived that evening. I am begging you, please, name your price. I looked at the red binder sitting on my coffee table. 300 pages of evidence documenting everything Blake had done. Every crime, every lie, every person he had hurt. I thought about Catherine Price, forced to sign an NDA and walk away. About Angela Martinez and David Sullivan, their careers ruined. About Walter Hughes, the CFO who tried to stop Blake and ended up resigning. I thought about myself, suspended without pay, facing fraudulent charges, my reputation destroyed. Blake had destroyed so many lives without a second thought. And now he needed my help. I opened my email and typed a single line. Check the red binder. I hit send before I could second guess myself. Blake's response came within 2 minutes. What red binder? What are you talking about? I did not reply. Let him wonder. Let him worry. Let him feel even a fraction of the anxiety and fear he had inflicted on everyone else. My phone rang an hour later. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. The message was Blake's voice, tight with panic. Lena, I do not understand what you are talking about. Please call me back. This is serious. I deleted the voicemail. The next day, I received a certified letter requiring my attendance at an emergency board meeting. The letter stated I was required to answer questions about alleged financial misconduct and fraud. Blake had convinced the board to move forward with charges against me. I called Amanda Foster, my attorney. They are trying to force your hand, she said after reading the letter. Bring you in, intimidate you, get you to confess or resign. I have the binder, I said. I know, and we are going to use it. But Lena, you need to be prepared. This is going to get worse before it gets better. She had no idea how right she was. The board meeting was scheduled for 3 days from now. I used that time to prepare, going over every page of the binder with Amanda, anticipating questions, planning responses. On the second day, I went to the grocery store to buy food I could barely afford. I returned to my apartment to find my front door slightly ajar. My heart stopped. I pushed the door open slowly. The apartment was destroyed. Furniture overturned, cushions slashed, papers scattered everywhere. My dresser drawers had been pulled out and dumped, my closet ransacked. Someone had been searching for something. My personal laptop, the one with all my evidence files, was smashed on the floor. The hard drive had been removed. I called the police. They came, took a report, dusted for fingerprints. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen from across the hall, told the officer she had seen a man in a suit leaving my building about an hour before I returned home. He looked angry, she said. In a hurry. I knew it was Blake. After the police left, I sat on my overturned couch, looking at the destruction. Blake was desperate enough to break into my apartment, desperate enough to commit another crime to cover up his others. I called Amanda. The binder is safe, I assured her. He did not find it because it is not here. Lena, this has escalated beyond corporate fraud. Blake is dangerous, you need to be careful. That night, I stayed at a cheap motel, afraid to sleep in my violated apartment. At 2 a.m, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Blake owes people money. He says you are the problem. Move the money, or we move you. I sat up in the motel bed, hands shaking. Blake had told the people he owed money to that I was blocking his access to funds. He had made me a target for criminals who solved problems with violence. I called the police again, forwarded the threatening text. They took another report but said there was little they could do without knowing who sent it. I emailed Douglas McIntyre, the board chairman, requesting security at the upcoming board meeting. I did not explain why, just stated that I had received threats. His response came within an hour. Security will be present. Are you safe? Should we postpone? I replied, do not postpone. I will be there. I spent the next 36 hours barely sleeping, jumping at every sound. I was suspended from my job, broke, threatened by criminals, and about to face a board of directors who already believed I was guilty. But I had something they did not expect. I had the truth, documented and undeniable. I had the red binder, and I was done being scared. The morning of the board meeting, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror in my motel room, trying to look professional despite sleeping 3 hours in the past 2 days. My best work suit, carefully pressed. Hair pulled back. Minimal makeup to hide the dark circles under my eyes. Amanda Foster picked me up at 8. The meeting was at 9. You ready? She asked as I got in her car. I clutched the red binder against my chest. I have to be. We drove to company headquarters in silence. I watched the familiar building grow closer, remembering the first day I had walked through those doors 3 years ago. Full of hope and ambition, excited about my future. Now I was walking in as a suspected criminal, fighting for my career and my freedom. Security met us at the entrance. Not the usual friendly guards I used to greet every morning, but serious men in dark suits with earpieces. Douglas McIntyre had taken my security request seriously. They escorted us to the 10th floor boardroom. My heart hammered with each step. The boardroom was exactly as I remembered. Long mahogany table, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. 8 board members sat around the table. CEO Ronald Hartwell sat at one end, his expression stern and unyielding. Next to him sat Blake, looking haggard. Dark circles under his eyes, suit slightly rumpled. He would not meet my gaze. Douglas McIntyre sat at the head of the table, the board chairman position. In his early 60s, with silver hair and sharp eyes, he had always struck me as fair-minded during the few company meetings I had attended. Marcus Green, the legal counsel, sat to Douglas's right with a thick file folder in front of him. The other board members I recognized from company photos: Helen Cho, the retired judge; Robert Patterson, a venture capitalist; Linda Wu, a former state senator; Thomas Bradley, who owned a chain of manufacturing plants, and 2 others whose names I could not immediately recall. Amanda and I took seats on the opposite side of the table. The security guards positioned themselves by the doors. Douglas called the meeting to order. We are here to review allegations of financial misconduct by Lena Hart, formerly senior financial analyst with this company. Marcus, please present the findings. Marcus opened his file. 3 weeks ago, an expense report was submitted under Miss Hart's credentials requesting $12,000 for consulting services. Our investigation determined that these services never occurred, and the vendor does not exist. This constitutes fraud and theft. He slid copies of the report across the table to each board member. Additionally, Marcus continued, we have testimony from 2 employees who observed Miss Hart engaging in suspicious behavior in the weeks before her suspension. He distributed additional documents. I recognized the names Justin Park and Sarah Fleming. Both were junior analysts I had trained when they started. Both had always seemed grateful for my mentorship. According to these witnesses, Marcus said, Miss Hart was frequently accessing financial records outside her normal duties. She was observed working late at night on what appeared to be personal projects using company systems. I felt Amanda tense beside me. This was worse than we had expected. Blake had not just framed me, he had recruited witnesses to support his story. The question before this board, Douglas said, is whether we pursue criminal charges or allow Miss Hart to resign quietly and repay the stolen funds. It was a trap. Either option ended with me admitting guilt. Ronald Hartwell spoke for the first time, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. "Miss Hart, this is very serious. You have had an excellent record with this company until recently. If you cooperate and resign, we are willing to keep this matter private. But if you force us to pursue charges, the consequences will be severe." Blake sat silently, staring at the table. He looked sick. I took a breath and placed the red binder on the table in front of me. "Before any decisions are made," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I would like the board to review some additional information." I slid the binder across the polished table to Marcus Green. "What is this?" Marcus asked. "Evidence," I said simply. "Evidence of systematic financial fraud occurring at this company over the past 18 months. Blake's head snapped up, his face going pale. Ronald Hartwell said sharply, "This is a distraction tactic. The matter at hand is Miss Hart's misconduct." Douglas McIntyre raised his hand. "Let us see what it is. Marcus, please review." The room fell silent as Marcus opened the red binder. I watched his face as he read. The first page was a summary. $75,000 in fraudulent expenses charged by Blake Hartwell over 18 months. His expression shifted from skeptical to concerned. He turned to page 2. Detailed breakdown with dates, amounts, and descriptions. The yacht party. The private jets. The casino trips, all charged as business expenses. Page 3. Bank transfer records showing company money flowing to Blake's personal accounts. Marcus flipped faster now, his lawyer's mind processing the implications. Social media posts matched to corporate expenditures. Receipts for personal luxuries charged as business costs. He reached the section on the falsified expense report used to frame me. Digital forensic evidence showing the report originated from a workstation on the executive floor, not from my desk. Metadata proving I could not have created it because I was in a meeting with witnesses when it was submitted. Marcus's expression grew darker. He found the statements from Catherine Price, Angela Martinez, and David Sullivan. 3 former employees, all describing the same pattern. Question Blake's spending, get accused of fraud, get forced out. Then he reached the most damaging section, the email chain between Walter Hughes and Ronald Hartwell. The former CFO raising concerns about Blake's expenses, Ronald's dismissive response telling him not to bring it up again. Marcus stopped reading. He looked up at Ronald Hartwell, then back down at the binder. He turned one more page and found the signed approval form, the $41,000 private jet expense, personally authorized by the CEO. Marcus's hands began to shake visibly. "You knew," he said quietly, looking at Ronald Hartwell. "You knew what he was doing." Ronald's face reddened. "That email is taken out of context. Those expenses were legitimate business costs." Marcus flipped to another page. "There is a receipt here for a 3-day stay at the Bellagio in Las Vegas. $28,000 charged to the company. Blake's Instagram from those same dates shows him at poker tables. No business meetings, no clients, just gambling. My son's personal social media is not evidence of anything," Ronald said, but his voice lacked conviction. Marcus turned to another tab. "Here is a breakdown of 6 separate occasions where large sums were transferred from company accounts to Blake's personal checking account. The transfers were coded as performance bonuses, but according to company policy, bonuses of this size require board approval. These never came before the board." Helen Cho, the retired judge, leaned forward. "May I see that?" Marcus passed the binder to her. She read in silence, her expression growing increasingly severe. She looked at Blake. "Did you charge personal expenses to this company?" Blake opened his mouth, closed it. "I can explain. Did you or did you not charge personal expenses to company accounts?" Helen's voice was sharp, judicial. Blake glanced at his father, then down at the table. "Some expenses may have been incorrectly categorized." "Incorrectly categorized," Helen repeated, her tone making it clear what she thought of that explanation. She turned to Ronald. "And you signed off on at least one of these expenses. This approval form has your signature." Ronald stood abruptly. "I'm not going to sit here and be accused by someone who is herself under investigation for fraud." Amanda Foster spoke for the first time. "My client is under investigation because your son planted false evidence to silence her after she discovered his theft." Everything in that binder is documented with source materials, dates, and corroborating evidence. We also have sworn statements from 3 former employees who were similarly targeted by Blake Hartwell when they questioned his spending. Douglas McIntyre had been reading over Helen's shoulder. His face was grave. "Marcus, this document suggests executive-level fraud and potential criminal liability for the company itself. If Blake was embezzling and Ronald was complicit, we face massive shareholder lawsuits and regulatory scrutiny." Blake stood suddenly, his chair scraping loudly. "This is lies. She fabricated everything. She is trying to frame me because I caught her stealing." His voice cracked on the last word. He looked desperate, cornered. Robert Patterson, the venture capitalist, spoke up. "Blake, these bank records show transfers from company accounts to your personal accounts. Did that happen or not?" "Those were legitimate bonuses," Blake said. But even he did not sound convinced. "Bonuses that never came before the board for approval," Douglas said. "Bonuses that coincidentally match the amounts shown as business expenses in these reports." He closed the binder and looked at Marcus. "How bad is this?" Marcus removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "If even half of what is in here is accurate, we are looking at systematic embezzlement, fraud, obstruction of justice. The company could face federal charges. Our stock will tank when this becomes public. We will have shareholder lawsuits for years." He looked at Ronald and Blake. "You have both potentially committed federal crimes, and by covering it up, the company itself may be liable." Douglas stood. "This meeting is adjourned. Marcus, retain outside counsel immediately. I want an independent investigation starting today." He turned to Ronald. "You are suspended from your position as CEO, effective immediately, pending the outcome of the investigation." Ronald's face went purple. "You cannot suspend me. I built this company. I own 30% of the stock." "The board has fiduciary duty to all shareholders," Douglas said firmly. "If you have been embezzling or covering up embezzlement, you are a liability. You are suspended. Blake, you are also suspended." He gestured to security. "Please escort Mr. Ronald Hartwell and Mr. Blake Hartwell from the building." The security guards moved forward. Blake looked at me, and for a moment I saw something that might have been hate, or fear, or desperation. Maybe all 3. "This is not over," he said quietly as the guards led him past. Ronald was still protesting loudly as they escorted him out. The remaining board members sat in stunned silence. Finally, Douglas looked at me. "Miss Hart, on behalf of this board, I apologize for what you have endured. Your suspension is lifted immediately. You will receive full back pay and compensation for the damage to your reputation." He paused. "We would like to offer you the position of interim CFO while we sort through this mess. We need someone with integrity and financial expertise to help us rebuild. Will you consider it?" I looked at Amanda. She gave me a small nod. "Yes," I said. "I will." As Amanda and I left the building an hour later, I felt numb. We had won. Blake and his father were suspended. The truth was out. But Amanda's warning from earlier echoed in my mind. Blake is dangerous. And now he had nothing left to lose. That night, I finally returned to my apartment. The police had processed the break-in scene days ago, but I had been too afraid to come back. Now, with Blake suspended and escorted from the building, I felt safe enough to start cleaning up the damage. I was sorting through scattered papers when my phone buzzed at 2:17 in the morning. The notification was from the company's financial security system. Alerts still came to my personal email because I had designed the system and built in a redundancy that sent notifications to multiple addresses in case of emergencies. The alert made my blood run cold. Unauthorized access attempt. Level 5 account breach. Someone was trying to access the company's primary operating account remotely. Level 5 was the highest security clearance, the account that held the company's main operating funds, millions of dollars. I grabbed my laptop and logged into the security system using my personal credentials. The IT department had not deactivated my access because they did not know about the backdoor I had created for emergency situations. On my screen, I could see the attempted breach in real time. Someone was using Blake's old credentials, trying various authorization codes to bypass the security protocols. They were attempting to transfer $250,000 to an offshore account. The automated security system was blocking the attempts, but whoever was doing this knew enough about the system to keep trying different approaches. They were methodical, systematic. It had to be Blake. I watched for 10 minutes as the attempts continued. Each one was blocked, but they kept coming. Blake was desperate, trying everything he could think of to access the money. I had a choice to make. I could do nothing and let the automated system handle it. Eventually, the repeated failed attempts would trigger a total lockdown and alert company security. Or I could actively intervene, shut down his access immediately, and alert authorities. Or I could let him succeed. That last thought surprised me. I could disable the security protocols right now, let Blake transfer the money and disappear. He would be gone, out of my life forever. The company would survive the loss of $250,000. I thought about his face in the boardroom today, haggard and desperate, about the threatening text I had received from his gambling contacts, about how he had destroyed so many lives without a second thought. If I let him take the money and run, he would just do this again somewhere else. Another company, another set of victims, and he did not deserve to escape. I made my decision. I activated a full system lockdown, freezing all account access immediately. Then I opened my email and composed a message to Special Agent Robert Chen at the FBI's Cybercrime Division. I had met him at a corporate security conference last year and kept his card. The email detailed everything: Blake's attempted breach, his embezzlement, the evidence in the red binder. I attached the system log showing his access attempts and sent it marked urgent. Blake's access was terminated completely. His attempts stopped. 30 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Lena. Blake's voice, panicked and breathless. Please, you have to help me. I do not have to do anything for you, I said coldly. They have me. His voice cracked. The people I owe money to. They are going to kill me if I do not pay by morning. Please, I know I did terrible things to you, but I am begging you. Let the transfer go through. Just let me have the money. I heard genuine terror in his voice. Part of me felt a flicker of sympathy. He was someone's son, someone's child, even if he had made terrible choices. But I thought about Catherine Price, signing an NDA with shaking hands, about Angela Martinez and David Sullivan, their careers destroyed, about myself, suspended and broke, threatened and afraid. I cannot let you steal from the company, Blake. Then I am dead, he shouted. Do you understand? I am dead. These people do not make empty threats. They will kill me. There was a sound of struggle, the phone clattering. A different voice came on the line. Rough, threatening. Someone who had made peace with violence a long time ago. Listen, lady. Your boy here owes us $80,000. We know he has access to company funds. You are blocking it. Unblock it in the next 2 hours, or we solve this problem permanently. Understand? The line went dead. I sat on my couch, hands shaking. This was real. Blake might actually be killed. The gambling ring he had gotten involved with was not going to let him walk away from his debts. For one long moment, I wavered. I could log back into the system and allow the transfer, $250,000 to save his life. But then I remembered. Blake had told these people about me. He had made me a target. He was willing to let them threaten me, hurt me, to save himself. And if I let him take this money, what would stop him from doing this again? From stealing from another company, ruining other people's lives, making the same terrible choices? I grabbed my phone and called Special Agent Robert Chen. It was nearly 3 a.m, but the FBI agent answered on the second ring. Agent Chen, this is Lena Hart. I sent you an email an hour ago about corporate fraud and cybercrime. But now there is something else. The suspect is being held by the people he owes gambling debts to. They threatened to kill him. Where? Chen's voice was immediately alert. I do not know. But I have his phone number from the call. Can you trace it? Stay on the line. The next 6 hours were a blur. FBI agents mobilized, phone traces, warrants executed. At 7:30 in the morning, I received a call from Agent Chen. We found him. Warehouse in Newark. He is alive, in custody. The people holding him are also in custody. I felt a wave of relief that surprised me. Despite everything Blake had done, I had not wanted him dead. There is more, Agent Chen continued. Based on the evidence you provided, we have also executed a warrant at company headquarters. The red binder you compiled is extensive. This is now a federal investigation into corporate fraud and embezzlement. Ronald Hartwell was arrested at his home an hour ago. I sat down heavily. The CEO? The evidence shows he was complicit in his son's crimes. He signed off on fraudulent expenses, he silenced employees who tried to report misconduct, and he used his position to cover up federal crimes. That makes him an accessory. The morning news showed footage of FBI agents at company headquarters. Ronald Hartwell being led from his mansion in handcuffs. Blake, looking exhausted and defeated, being transferred from FBI custody to federal marshals. The company's stock immediately plummeted. By noon, it had lost 40% of its value. My phone rang. Douglas McIntyre. Lena, the board needs to meet with you. Today. Can you come in? I arrived at headquarters to find news vans parked outside, reporters trying to get statements from employees. Security had to escort me through the crowd. The board meeting was held in a smaller conference room. The massive boardroom was still sealed as part of the FBI investigation. Douglas looked like he had aged 10 years overnight. Lena, I will get straight to the point. This company is in crisis. Federal investigation, stock collapse, shareholder lawsuits being filed by the hour. We need leadership, and we need it now. He slid a document across the table. We would like to offer you the position of CFO, not interim, permanent, along with a seat on the board of directors. I looked at the document. The salary was substantial. The authority was real. Helen Cho spoke. We know this company tried to destroy you. We know what the Hartwells did. But you are the only person here who has proven they have both the expertise and the integrity to lead our financial operations. We need you. I thought about the $2 million settlement they had tried to offer me just yesterday. Take the money and disappear. Stay silent. Let corruption continue. This was different. This was a chance to actually change things. I will do it, I said. On certain conditions. Douglas nodded. Name them. Full transparency in all executive compensation and expenses. Every dollar spent by company leadership gets reported to the board quarterly. No exceptions. Agreed. A whistleblower protection program. Any employee who reports misconduct gets protection from retaliation, and all reports are investigated by an independent third party. Agreed. No NDAs for employees reporting misconduct. If this company has done wrong, we own it publicly and commit to doing better. Douglas looked around the table. The other board members nodded. Agreed, he said. Anything else? Employee financial wellness programs. The people who work here should not live in fear of reporting problems because they cannot afford to lose their jobs. We provide resources, support, and protection. Helen smiled slightly. You are not just thinking about the finances. You are thinking about the people. The people are what matter, I said. Numbers on a spreadsheet do not build companies. People do. Douglas extended his hand. Welcome to the executive team, CFO Hart. I shook his hand, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The next 6 months were the hardest of my professional life. I worked 12-hour days rebuilding financial systems, meeting with federal investigators, testifying before regulatory boards, and reassuring shareholders who had lost faith in the company. Blake Hartwell pleaded guilty to embezzlement, wire fraud, and obstruction of justice. His attorney negotiated a deal, full cooperation with federal investigators in exchange for a reduced sentence. He received 5 years in federal prison. Ronald Hartwell went to trial. He refused to plead guilty, insisting he had done nothing wrong. The jury disagreed. He was convicted on 7 counts of fraud and conspiracy. The judge sentenced him to 10 years. The company paid $47 million in fines and settlements. Our stock remained depressed for months. 3 board members resigned under pressure. Shareholders demanded accountability at every meeting. But slowly, we rebuilt. I implemented every reform I had promised. Financial transparency became company policy. Every executive expense report was published quarterly on the company website. The Whistleblower Protection Program received 38 reports in the first 6 months, and every single one was investigated thoroughly. We discovered 2 additional cases of financial misconduct, both far less serious than Blake's crimes, but still violations of policy. The employees involved were terminated, but the employees who reported them were commended and rewarded. The message was clear. This company would no longer protect wrongdoing. I hired back Catherine Price as Director of Financial Compliance. She cried when I called her with the offer. "I never thought I would work in corporate finance again," she said. "Thank you for believing me." "You deserved better than what happened to you," I told her. We all did. 8 months after the board meeting where everything changed, I sat in my new office on the executive floor, corner office with windows overlooking the city. A view I had never imagined having when I started as a senior financial analyst 3 years ago. My phone buzzed with an email. The sender was Grace Martinez, a junior financial analyst. Subject: expense discrepancy. I opened it with interest. Grace had noticed a minor irregularity in a department manager's expense reports. Nothing huge, just $800 in charges that seemed to be coded incorrectly. She was not accusing anyone of fraud, just asking if someone could review it. Under the old system, a junior analyst reporting a manager would have been career suicide. Under the new system, it was exactly what we encouraged. I immediately forwarded the email to Catherine Price and thanked Grace for her diligence. The discrepancy was investigated that afternoon. It turned out to be an honest mistake, a coding error rather than intentional fraud. But the manager was still required to complete additional training on proper expense procedures. Grace received a commendation and a bonus for her attention to detail. I smiled as I filed the email. This was what a healthy company looked like. People feeling safe to speak up, problems being addressed rather than hidden, accountability at every level. My phone rang. Unknown number, but not blocked. "This is Lena Hart." "Hi, Lena. This is Sarah Fleming." I recognized the name immediately. Sarah was one of the employees Blake had pressured into giving false testimony against me during the investigation. "Sarah," I said carefully. "How are you?" "I am calling to apologize." Her voice was thick with emotion. "What I did to you was wrong. Blake threatened my job if I did not say those things about you. I was scared, and I made a terrible choice. I have been carrying that guilt for months." "I understand why you did it," I said. "Blake was good at making people afraid. That does not make it right. I participated in his lies. I helped him try to destroy you." She paused. "I am not calling to ask for anything. I just needed you to know that I am sorry. What you have done here, the changes you have made, it matters. People feel safe now. That is because of you." After we hung up, I sat for a long moment, looking out at the city. I thought about the journey that brought me here, the canceled conference trip that had seemed so devastating at the time, finding Blake's fraud and realizing the danger I was in, the terror of being framed, suspended, threatened, building the red binder with shaking hands, not knowing if anyone would believe me, the board meeting where everything could have gone either way, Blake's desperate call from the warehouse begging me to save him, the choice I made to pursue justice rather than mercy. I thought about all the times I had wanted to give up, to take a settlement and walk away, to let Blake win because fighting seemed impossible. But I had not given up. And now I was sitting in the CFO's office, leading a company that was slowly becoming what it should have been all along. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Jordan Matthews, my colleague who had warned me about Blake's pattern of destroying people. "Drinks tonight to celebrate your first year as CFO? You deserve it." I smiled and replied yes. That evening, as I prepared to leave the office, I walked past the small frame on my wall. Inside was the first page of the red binder, the summary page that had started everything. Someone had asked me once if I regretted creating that binder, if I wished I had just stayed quiet, taken a settlement, moved on with my life. The answer was no, because silence does not protect you. Silence protects the people doing wrong. I had learned that your voice matters, even when using it is terrifying. That evidence is power when wielded with integrity. That standing up for what is right will cost you something, maybe everything, but staying silent costs more. I had learned that corrupt systems survive because good people stay quiet, and they fall when someone finally speaks up. Most importantly, I had learned that I was stronger than I believed. That courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Blake and Ronald Hartwell were in prison. The company had survived and was rebuilding with real integrity. Employees felt safe speaking up. Problems were being addressed rather than hidden. And I was no longer the scared analyst desperately trying to keep her job. I was the CFO, the person responsible for ensuring this company's finances reflected its values. I turned off my office lights and headed home, feeling something I had not felt in a long time. Peace. 1 year after becoming CFO, I stood before 200 company employees at our annual meeting. The auditorium was full, people sitting in every seat, some standing in the back. These were the people who had lived through the scandal, who had watched their company nearly collapse, who had wondered if they would still have jobs. A year ago, I began. This company faced the worst crisis in its 30-year history. Federal investigations, criminal charges against our leadership, stock collapse, and a complete loss of trust from shareholders and the public. The room was silent. Today, I am here to tell you that we survived. Not just survived, but changed. We are not the same company we were before. We are better. I clicked to the first slide. Financial results from the past year. Revenue up 18%. Stock price recovered to 85% of pre-scandal levels. Employee retention at 93%, the highest in company history. These numbers matter, I said. But they are not what I am most proud of. What I am most proud of is this. Next slide. Results from the anonymous employee survey. 91% of employees said they felt safe reporting problems. 87% said they trusted company leadership. 94% said they would recommend this company as a place to work. You, the employees, feel safe here. You trust that when you speak up, you will be heard and protected. That is what real success looks like. Applause filled the room. After the meeting, employees came up to thank me. Some shared their own stories of feeling empowered to report problems, knowing they would not face retaliation. Others simply said they were proud to work here now. Grace Martinez, the junior analyst who had reported the expense discrepancy months ago, approached me nervously. CFO Hart, I just wanted to say thank you for creating a place where people like me can speak up without being afraid. Call me Lena, I said with a smile. And you do not need to thank me. You are exactly the kind of employee this company needs. Someone with integrity who pays attention and is not afraid to ask questions. As the crowd dispersed, Catherine Price found me. You did good, she said. Really good. We did good, I corrected. You have been essential to rebuilding our compliance systems. Catherine smiled. Do you ever think about how different things could have been if you had just stayed quiet when you found Blake's fraud? All the time, I admitted. I think about how close I came to taking a settlement and walking away, how much easier that would have been. But you did not. No, because easy is not the same as right. That evening, I sat in my apartment, the new one I had been able to afford after my promotion. Bigger, safer, in a better neighborhood. I had replaced everything Blake destroyed when he broke in a year ago. I opened my laptop and looked at a draft email I had been working on for weeks. An article for a business publication about corporate fraud, whistleblower protection, and the importance of ethical leadership. I had been nervous about publishing it, worried about drawing more attention to the scandal. But I realized that my story might help someone else facing a similar situation. Someone who discovered wrongdoing and was afraid to speak up. I finalized the article and hit send to the editor. My phone rang. It was Amanda Foster, the attorney who had stood beside me through everything. I just saw your employee meeting speech online, she said. Someone posted a video. It is getting a lot of attention. Good attention or bad attention? Very good. People are calling you inspiring. A role model for ethical leadership. Forbes wants to interview you. I laughed, still not quite used to the attention. A year ago, I was suspended and facing fraud charges. A year ago, you had the courage to fight back when everyone said you should stay quiet. That matters, Lena. Your story matters. After we hung up, I thought about her words. My story mattered, not because I was special or extraordinary, but because I was ordinary. A regular employee who saw something wrong and decided to do something about it. If I could do it, others could too. I pulled up my personal email and found messages from 3 former employees of other companies, all reaching out after hearing about what happened here. Each one described similar situations: discovering fraud, being threatened, feeling trapped. Each one asked the same question: what should I do? I spent the next 2 hours responding to each message individually, offering advice, sharing resources, explaining how to document evidence and protect yourself. Because that was the point of everything I had been through. Not just to save myself or fix one company, but to show others that speaking up was possible, that corrupt systems could be challenged. That truth, properly documented and bravely presented, could overcome even the most powerful opposition. 3 days later, I received a handwritten letter. The return address was a federal prison in Pennsylvania. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. The handwriting was Blake's. Lena, I know I have no right to contact you. I know I do not deserve your attention or forgiveness, but my therapist says I need to take accountability for my actions, so I am writing this. I destroyed your life and the lives of many others because I was selfish, entitled, and addicted to gambling. I blamed everyone but myself for my problems. I targeted you because you were good at your job and might notice what I was doing. I tried to destroy you to protect myself. That was evil. I cannot undo the damage I caused, but I want you to know that I am genuinely sorry. I am working on becoming a better person, though I know that does not erase what I did. You did not owe me anything, but you still chose not to let those men kill me. Thank you for that. I hope the company is doing well under your leadership. From everything I have heard, you are exactly what it needed. I wish I had been that person instead of who I was. Blake. I read the letter 3 times. I did not know if his remorse was genuine or just words on paper. Maybe he really was changing. Maybe this was just another manipulation. But it did not matter. I had stopped letting Blake Hartwell occupy space in my mind months ago. I filed the letter away and moved on with my day, because I had learned something important through all of this. Closure does not come from the people who hurt you. It comes from rebuilding your own life and refusing to let their actions define you. Blake was in prison, facing the consequences of his choices. I was here, living well, leading ethically, helping others find their courage. That was closure enough. As I prepared for bed that night, I thought about the person I had been a year ago, scared, suspended, facing criminal charges, wondering if I would lose everything. And I thought about the person I was now, CFO of a major company, advocate for ethical leadership and whistleblower protection, someone who had faced down corruption and won. The journey had been terrifying. There were so many moments when giving up seemed like the only option, when staying quiet would have been easier, safer, less costly. But I had not given up. I had documented everything, built my case carefully, and refused to be silenced. And that made all the difference. Before turning off the light, I looked one more time at the framed first page of the red binder hanging on my bedroom wall, a reminder of where I had been and what I had overcome. A reminder that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply refuse to accept injustice, that your voice matters more than you know, that standing firm in your truth, even when the whole world seems against you, is worth it. I had learned that corrupt people always believe they are untouchable, right up until the moment they fall. And they always fall, eventually, if someone is brave enough to push. I turned off the light and went to sleep, no longer afraid of what tomorrow might bring, because I had already faced the worst and come out stronger. And if I could do it, so could anyone else facing a similar choice. Speak up. Document everything. Stand firm in your truth. The path of integrity is harder and scarier than staying quiet, but it is the only path that leads to real change. And change is always worth fighting for. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed wrongdoing at work or in your life and struggled with whether to speak up? What stopped you or what gave you the courage to act? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else who needs to hear it. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about courage, justice, and standing up for what is right. And share this with someone who might need to hear that their voice matters and that speaking truth to power is possible. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you are stronger than you think, that integrity matters, and that one person willing to stand up can change everything. Stay brave, stay honest, and never underestimate the power of refusing to stay silent.